Hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of Astrology Now, your cosmic guide to the stars and how they shape our lives. I'm holistic therapist and astrology student, Cheryl Gottschall, and I'm joined by astrology teacher, Babula Clement. And in this episode, we're diving into the powerful energy of the new moon in Capricorn, which is coming up very soon. Actually, we're recording this a couple of days before, so it's the final new moon of the year. It carries a profound energy of closure, reflection, and new beginnings. And we've just been chatting about, being in the holiday season and how chill we feel. It's very nice not to have to think about deadlines and dates and things like that. But, this is the cosmic moment where we shift gears and we refocus and set our intentions for the year ahead with clarity and purpose and long-term planning in mind. So let's jump into that, Babula, or should I say, let's bring the planetary energies in for touchdown because it's checkout time from the holiday hotel.
Yes, it's been lovely, hasn't it, to just take a pause and to not be rushing around and feeling all the pressures of so many things to do. I know sometimes Christmas can be a bit pressured for people to if they're gathering with lots of family and so on, but you and I have both had a very relaxing, chilled
Yeah.
Christmas, for which we are very grateful
Yeah.
after a big year.
And I've actually had to wind myself up to do this episode because
Yeah,
I just really chilled out. Had a
that's
spectacular.
great.
Yeah, but isn't it interesting how at this time of year, when we're coming into the Capricorn new moon, how it's restrictive and it sort of brings everything in. And this is a time when we go on a diet after Christmas.
Yeah.
We limit our food intake and things like that. Some people do anyway.
Yeah, that's right. And we start thinking about the year ahead, and depending on what our work is and our life situation and so on, there's a sense, isn't there, of preparing and what do I need to do and what needs to be finalized and finished up this year so that I can move into the new year. I mean, when we talk about the new year, we're talking about the calendar new year. There's
Yeah.
other kinds of New Years, like the Chinese New Year in February, and then there's the astrological New Year in March. But the calendar New Year's, it has energy because the whole culture operates with that, even if it's not, even if it's been kind of a man-made thing. It still has energy and power, this idea of, the end of the calendar year. So yes, there is that sense of winding down, completing things, getting organized, preparing, thinking ahead. I've had my next year's diary out, and as I do at the end of the year, I go through all the transits for the year, my own personal transits, and the main movements of planets that will affect everyone, and they all go into my diary. So I've been doing that. It's part of that Capricorn feeling of wanting to get organized.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I exactly. It's a real sort of sense of let's get down to business now,
Yeah. Yeah. And without too much of the stress and pressures of of the year that's coming to a close. We
Yeah.
have a bit more space to sort of do that. Because when we're busy all the time, you don't always get a lot of time to do that kind of organizing, and
No.
you're just trying to keep up with the
Yes. Yeah,
Mm.
there's a real sense of like often during the year, there's a sense of a bit of dissociation really because you're going ahead like this, but sometimes the mind isn't keeping up, or it's vice versa, the body's not there. And I think this is a really, it's been a nice time to consolidate at
Yeah.
the end of the year, to consolidate and get ready for the next year.
Yeah. I think so too, and to sort of integrate and yeah, just that feeling of getting prepared. And I when I post things on Facebook about what I'm experiencing in relation to the astrological energies, it's amazing how many people respond and say, I'm experiencing exactly the same thing. I'm doing that too.
Yeah. And we're talking about preparing for the year ahead, not tomorrow or next week, because this is a Capricorn new moon as well, Capricorn energy.
Yeah,
So that's that long-term planning, long-term.
exactly. Exactly. We're thinking about the picture of the longer term ahead. Exactly. And we're coming into the middle of this decade as well. So there's a sense, I think, for me also of not just the year ahead, but where we are in this decade. And as someone commented just recently, and it gave me pause, it's like we are now coming into completion of the first quarter of this century. I mean, I remember when this century began. I look at a quarter of it has pretty much been done.
Yes.
That's incredible.
It's a bit of a mind spinner, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. The other thing with this Capricorn new moon being ruled by Saturn is it's the Lord of Karma. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's been about, well, what did I do and what were the results, And how's that working for you, Cheryl? Like a bit of a
Yeah.
feel. How'd that work for you? Well, maybe that wasn't so great. Maybe I'll do it this way. But yeah, it's about learning lessons too from the past.
Yeah. So yeah, Capricorn and its Platin and its planet Saturn. So we've got to get our mouths working again with that.
Fines.
And the mind kicking in with the mouth. Yes, so it keeps it very real. Saturn and Capricorn keep things very real, and we have to be having a sober, clear-eyed look at things,
Yeah.
in very real terms. And I think that's a really great benefit of this sign.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. So early in my astrological career, many years ago, I used to feel like I don't like Saturn. I don't want Saturn. Let's get rid of it. It's just annoying and it's difficult. But I've come to respect it a great deal.
Mm,
And
mm,
because I realize that what comes through Saturn and this sign of Capricorn is clarity and wisdom, that comes over time through going through various trials and tribulations and tests. It's a real testing ground.
mm,
Right.
mm, mm. I think I know I do. I sometimes forget that Capricorn is represented as the mystical sea creature of half goat and half fish. So it sort of straddles the real world and then other things. So it sort of brings things into material reality, doesn't it?
Exactly.
It's sort of balancing the mystical with the material reality and be real with our goals. So it's
Yeah.
bringing those things in a nebulous space into manifestation.
Yeah, exactly. And there is that mystical side to Capricorn, which can easily be overlooked.
Mm,
And, I've done a lot of research on the astrology of spiritual enlightenment and the gurus and the masters of, long gone and current and so on. And invariably, the really genuine ones, they usually have a lot of Capricorn energy in their charts.
mm.
It's very interesting. They've been through many, many intense lifetimes of challenge and testing and discipline and focus and commitment to the path, and so they then come to a place where they embody that in a very, very real way.
Mm.
That's this whole other level of Capricorn, which, as you said, I think connects to the mystical energies of the mountain goat with the fish's tail. It's such a fascinating image, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, sort of aligning our what would you say, cosmic desires, if you want to say, with real
Mm,
world action,
mm.
and Capricorn's Earth. So it's bringing it down to
Absolutely.
land solidly on the ground.
Yeah,
Uh, and so we can sort of integrate higher, um, more abstract sort of, well, let's remember we've got Pluto in Aquarius, so those Uranian energies of the cosmos into our physical day-to-day life.
that's right.
Yeah,
That
making
that's right.
our intentions feel more tangible and achievable.
Yeah. And I think Capricorn comes after Sagittarius as well. So Sagittarius is a sign of vision. Sag is always looking at what's possible through the higher mind and higher knowledge. And then Capricorn follows on and says, okay, well, what are we going to do about it? How are we going to bring that into reality and give it structure and form?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I
Yeah.
think on a personal level, for people, I know for me, because I've got Saturn on my sun.
In Sag. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's about, for me, when I have a project, it's about building it brick by brick.
Right.
It's like the foundations of something that I have this idea, this vision and idea, but I want to make it happen. So what are the steps to make it happen? And that's that Capricornian.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it requires focus and effort and discipline and commitment, doesn't it? And
Yeah.
diligence. It's not just floating around in the never never. It has to be brought in and honed and clarified and made real.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it's a very hardworking sign, and Capricorns don't always have an easy time of, particularly in their young life. But I have found many Capricorns, as they mature and grow and develop themselves through all those tests and trials and disciplines, they often lighten up the older they get.
Hmm.
Many Capricorns actually have a great sense of fun and humor, but you may not meet that because they can appear so serious and sober and sensible, but there's actually this other side to them
Yes.
so often.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You remind me that our editor of these recordings, he's he's got Capricorn in the first Capricorn ascendant, Moon in Capricorn, and he's very nose to the grindstone, get stuff done.
Yeah,
And he did have a tough earlier life,
yeah,
hardworking, but now now he's such a comedian.
yeah, yeah, and playful.
Yes, yes.
That's right.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah,
really interesting.
it's really fascinating. So this new moon is at 9 degrees of Capricorn. In fact, we're in a sequence now of new moons over the next few months. And I think the last one was as well at 9 degrees of the signs as we go through the signs. So if anyone's got planets in their chart or ascendants and angles and so on around 9 degrees, there's a series of new moons hitting 9 degrees of the different signs. So this new moon is on Tuesday, the 31st of December. So isn't that fascinating that it's the very last day of 2024?
Yeah.
And Brisbane time, it's at pretty much 8:30, 8:26 a.m. on New Year's Eve. So it sees this year out, this calendar year out.
Mm.
And because I was just curious, I was curious to see, are there any other interesting asteroids or bodies very close to this 9 degree new moon? And there are some interesting ones, which I'll just mention. And some people may resonate with some of these. So there is one of the new outer planets that was started to be discovered in the early 2000s in a belt in the outer reaches of our solar system called the Kuiper Belt. And this one was called Quoa. It's a very challenging name to pronounce,
Mm.
but it's something like that. And it was named after a creator god of a North American native Indian tribe who lived in the southern area of what we now call California. And I've been reading up more about this, and it's very interesting. So the idea is that, and we'll call it source or great spirit, like in the Native American tradition, it would be great spirit, source, the mystery, the void, whatever, gives birth to a created God who is then, through song and dance, sings and dances the world into being. And he creates all these other deities who all have different roles and functions. And then together, so there's something about the group energy, together, they sing and dance the whole world into existence, the earth, the rivers, all of it. It's a wonderful story. So there's something about, and it's at 9 degrees of Capricorn right on this new moon. So there's something about song and dance and the power of, and look how many native cultures, African, Native American, Aboriginal, in group, the tribe comes together and they dance and they drum and they sing and they chant. In Indian spiritual traditions, you know, the chanting and the music, and there's something really powerful about that. And I don't know, I've experienced it, you probably have as well. That power, even in churches, people are singing hymns and prayers, and that collective energy of song and movement and dance and drumming or whatever the music is really powerful. And so I think there's something around this, you know, our power to create and bring worlds into being in a very Capricornian way. You know, what are we creating? And are we doing it in a way that feels, you know, joyful and creative and expressive, like song and dance, that kind of thing? I just love the imagery around that.
Yeah.
And I think it's a beautiful invitation for us on this Capricorn moon to really not just to go through the pragmatic process of preparing for the year ahead, but how does it express our real creative impulse to create something wonderful and amazing?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fascinating.
it's fascinating. It's wonderful. It really inspired me when I started to look more deeply into this.
Yeah.
And you know, in the course you're doing with me next year, we're going to look at some of these outer bodies, and they're very, very interesting, particularly when they show up strongly in someone's chart, like this one is right now on the new moon.
Yeah, that's interesting because I mean the new moon, it's about looking within too, isn't it? So
Yes, it is.
it's about so in a way with that story connected to it, it's about aligning what's inside of us with what we're building in the outside world,
Yeah.
you know, and looking at that.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. And I think a part of that is we do it individually, but are we also doing that collectively and with others as well?
Mm,
You
mm.
know, and how together that process is extremely powerful because, as many are saying, you know, the old world is collapsing and dying and it's not giving up without a fight, but our focus is becoming more and more directed to, but what are we creating? What are we birthing? You know, the new world, the new earth at a higher level of consciousness and vibration. So this new moon feels like it holds that energy quite strongly. Like, what are we really creating and birthing here?
Yeah, yeah. And that because we've got Saturn in Pisces, so that's that
Yeah,
dissolving of structure.
that's right.
Yeah, so yeah, interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It really is. There's also another interesting body here at 9 degrees as well. Also this group of bodies, planets that are often called boundary crossers. They're also collectively known as the centaurs. Chiron was the first one discovered in 1977. Since then, there's been some others. The second one was called Pholos. And just briefly, the story of Pholos, and I bring it in because it's at 9 degrees of Capricorn
Wow.
on this new moon, was that he was given the task by Dionysus, who's a very Piscean god energetically, who was the god of wine and drinking and dance and ecstatic trance. And, you know, he'd be out in the forest with all the maenads, you know, the women, and they'd be dancing and drinking and going into states of ecstasy. So Pholos was given charge of guarding and taking care of Dionysus' flask of sacred wine. But along came Hercules, who was friends with a lot of these centaurs, and he said, "Oh, look, I'd really love love some wine." And because Pholos is very, you know, kind-hearted, generous, could be, he said, "Oh, I really shouldn't, but okay." So then that whole leads to a whole story of a big drunken party occurs, other centaurs start showing up, and it turns into a great disaster. And there's something about foal loss that's to do with the lid comes off. Because remember, Capricorn is that kind of sober, serious sign. But there's something here with Quora and foal loss that suggests that I think we're looking at what we can manifest and create and bring into form, but let's make it more than what Capricorn might traditionally think is sensible and reasonable. Like, let's expand this out into something a bit more ecstatic and creative and imaginative. That's the feeling I get with this. Like,
Interesting.
let's open it up somehow and dare to envision something amazing, but bring it into reality through the energy of Capricorn.
I wonder if Capricorn would be very, what's the word, comfortable with that.
Well, I think there's an aspect of Capricorn that can be like, I'm thinking of one very old. She's not old, but well, she's my age, so she's getting there. A woman I've known for many years is a Capricorn, very spiritually aligned, and her work that she's very committed to is very much about being a vehicle for bringing in these spiritual energies. So there's that side, and there's a lot of vision associated with that, right? It's like she has a vision and she will do everything she possibly can to make that vision real. So I think that's the kind of feeling I'm getting from this new moon. So I think that's a wonderful invitation for us all on this last day of 2024 to get really creative and inspired.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah,
Great story.
yeah. And Jupiter's in Gemini, and Gemini is the storyteller, and Jupiter offers a sort of let's, through story and ideas and conversation, open things right up.
Yes, yeah.
You know, we
Yeah.
know how amazing it is when we get together with a friend or a group of friends and all the amazing conversations that happen. It happens to me all the time. Like, I hardly ever get together with a friend or a group of friends where I don't come away feeling like, oh, that's amazing, I'm going to follow that up. There's a new idea or, there's a new piece of information that's valuable and
Mm,
inspiring in some way.
yeah. There's more around that story of Jupiter and Gemini too, isn't it? But I'm sure you're going to get to it.
Yes, yes, we will. Jupiter's been making squares to Saturn.
Mm,
And while on the one hand, Jupiter can get very lost in the obsessive addiction to trivia and social media and just clicking on things endlessly and it not going anywhere, Jupiter in Gemini can be like that. The square to Saturn in Pisces is kind of having those reality checks every now and then. You go, oh God, enough of that. I've got to turn that off.
yeah.
And also, is that serving me? Is it useful? Or am I just, fritting away time here and wasting time and just lost in endless distraction, which can be very Jupiter in Gemini.
There's there's sort of two themes going on there, isn't there? There's like Saturn in Pisces square Jupiter in Gemini. Um, and there's a theme like we're trying to adjust each, we're trying to make adjustments in one area so that we can build or expand in another area.
Yeah.
There's sort of a negotiation going on there.
Yes.
Isn't easy.
No, because they both represent two very fundamental principles. Saturn is contraction
Yeah,
and Jupiter is expansion. So Jupiter's always wanting more, 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 more. And in Gemini, it's just more information, more mental stimulation, please. And
yeah,
Saturn's over here going, that's too much. That's too much.
yeah. So
So
it's
they're trying to kind of work this thing out.
yeah, yeah. Adventure versus safety, basically.
Yeah.
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 How can we balance um, you know, discovery and growth with, feelings wanting to feel safe and secure at the same time?
Yeah. And keeping it grounded.
Yeah.
Real. That's right. So the squares are really kind of holding the tension between those two.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There is tension, definitely.
Yeah, there is.
Mm,
Um, is there anything else about specifically about that new moon? There are some other, you see, there are some other asteroids around this too. Before I move on, I often talk about the black moon Lilith, but there's another Lilith, and that is an asteroid. So these are two different things, but they're both, I often call the black moon just the black moon, but people often call it Lilith.
mm,
But there is an asteroid called Lilith, and she's also at 9 degrees of Capricorn.
mm-hmm,
And when I combine that with these other things I've been talking about at 9 Capricorn with the new moon, again, there's an aspect of Lilith that's about being wild and authentic and real
mm-hmm,
and outside of the norm. And it's such an interesting thing to have these energies going on a Capricorn new moon, which is by nature more traditional and respecting of boundaries and limitations. And yet there's these other energies here that suggest how do we work within certain boundaries and limits, but at the same time also get very imaginative, creative. I think it's like acknowledging there's certain limits. Now, how do we make the most of this and really stretch it as far as we can go?
mm, mm,
You know?
mm. Yeah, that's interesting. I was looking at too, I think I was just sorry we were talking, I was looking at the chart. There seems to be a T square between Mercury, Jupiter, and Saturn too, that I could see.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So Mercury's come out of retrograde and is moving on now, but there's that square between Jupiter and Saturn, and Mercury's in Sagittarius.
Mm,
Um, Over the next week, it will move out of that T square. So,
mm,
yeah, there's a lot of still of that stimulation of the mind going on with this
mm, mm,
T square in those mutable signs. But I think the Saturn part of it, because Saturn's the focal point of the T square, like a T square is the two planets opposite each other, Jupiter and Mercury, and Saturn's down here making that square corner. And it's sort of holding the energy. And and I think that's what we were talking about before about, the Mercury in Sagittarius opposite Jupiter in Gemini is so busy and so mentally busy, but Saturn's there calling for times of stillness and quiet. And, can we take time out to just quieten that mind down and connect more to what we're feeling rather than just what we're thinking?
yeah. But I just want to say something in regard to that T square too.
Yeah.
About I see it because of Mercury, talking and thinking, and Jupiter is about our beliefs, and Saturn is about, okay, well, what's real? And I see it, and I'm saying this because of a group of friends that were over yesterday, where we're questioning the truth of everything,
Yes.
and our own belief systems are being challenged too. We're
Yeah.
challenging each other's belief systems, so I see that coming together as, like, and then what happens with a society that questions everything? Like, where's the reality? The sort of it, that could take
Mm,
a dark turn really, because if we don't
mm.
trust or anything, then, how does that play out?
That's right.
Mm,
That's right. And as you say that, one obvious thing comes to mind about that. I think there are other astrological things that relate to this as well. The issue of the drones,
yes.
like what is real. And I'm listening to many different discussions about it. For a while I was, I'm doing it less so now because I'm forming certain views about it. But the bottom line is, how do we know what's really true here?
Yes, yeah. And for those people who are just hearing about this for the first time, we're talking about these lights that have been appearing over military bases, and particularly over the east coast of the USA, over New Jersey, Washington, New York, etc., but mostly New Jersey, but other places in the world too. And they're being called drones. Now, in my reality, I would call them UFOs until we know what they are, because they're really just unidentified. But yeah,
Right.
so and there's so many theories about, well, what are they? And if they're adversaries, why aren't they being shot down? And if they're not, well, why aren't we scrambling fighter jets to get up there and get them out of the skies? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, and who's responsible for them?
Yes,
Where are they coming from?
I think we're going to see a lot more of that next year.
Oh, I do too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So this really fits that T-square. Like, what's real here? What's true here? Because you listen to different sources of people discussing it, and most people don't know, and they'll acknowledge that, but they're discussing it, and people have different points of view, and it's extremely interesting.
Mm.
And yeah, a couple of people I've listened to lately are kind of making me lean towards a particular viewpoint about that. But I always try to stay really open. Right now, that's how I'm seeing it.
Mm.
And
Mm.
we'll see what happens next.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's very important with these mutable signs, to keep our minds as open as possible.
Yes, very much so. But for me, that Capricornian energy, that Saturn on my sun,
Yeah. You want evidence.
keep your feet on the ground. What's the evidence? What are the facts? Because mind you, stories can be woven around facts in many different ways.
Absolutely.
That's what we're seeing, right? Because it's not like these things aren't real. They are real. They are in the skies. But what really is it? You
That's
know.
right.
And Babul, I don't know if I had this discussion with you about Pluto moving into Aquarius.
Yeah, that's when all this started.
I know. So something had to happen from the skies for that energy to be really catalyzed.
Yeah.
Whether it's real, whether it's what we think it is, or whether it's something else, that's another question.
Yeah.
But something started cosmically above our heads to get people to wake up.
That's right.
Wake up. There are other things going on here.
That's right. And so we're having to, instead of just living in this very kind of tunnel vision down here, we're having to do that.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a lot more going, as you know, going on in the skies over these coming years. And then when Uranus, the ruling planet of Aquarius, starts to move into Gemini in the next couple of years,
Mm.
making those trines to Pluto in Aquarius, boy, are we going to see some interesting things.
Yeah. Things are just going to pop up out of
Yeah.
nowhere. What?
Yeah.
Shocking.
And the other piece of this is, you brought in Pluto. Absolutely. As Pluto moved into Aquarius in November, that's when these things started to appear.
Mm.
And of course, Pluto is making a series of 3 oppositions from Mars, so we need to talk about Mars, because Mars is very, very active during this whole period and continuing to be so in the coming months. So I just wanted to run through a quick bit of few dates and data just to sort of set the scene. So early November, Mars moved into Leo, and he'd normally move through a sign in 6 weeks. Yep. He turned retrograde at 6 Leo on the 7th of December. So Mars is now retrograde for this 10-week period. On the 6th of January, he will move back during this first half of this lunar cycle. He will move back into Cancer. So this Mars retrograde is sitting across 2 signs, both Leo and Cancer, and it will go back to 17 degrees of Cancer, where it'll turn retrograde on the 24th of February. And then it will go back into Leo in April. And it won't be until mid-June that Mars finally exits Leo. Mars in Leo is all about, well, there's a lot we could do a whole hour just talking about Mars in Leo and the different expressions of that. The highest expression is about us really claiming our authentic self and standing up for that and saying, this is who I am. I will do that and I will not do that. and being very, very clear about that and stepping up into roles of leadership in the most positive of ways. So, a healthy Mars in Leo gives us courage and an ability to be able to confront our fears and move beyond them. And, I've had a couple of experiences where life's given me the opportunity to directly face fear, like in my body, and treat it as like a meditation. Right now, I'm experiencing this fear, and to just literally be with it totally. It's the most amazing thing. A lot of people, we all have fear. There's a lot of anxiety. Anxiety is, to me, just kind of another word for fear. And I think when Mars is retrograding, particularly in Leo, it's a really healthy thing for us to really face our fear directly, not just mentally and think about it, but to actually feel it, because it can really be very quickly transformed when we do that. Mars in retrograde, we can feel very frustrated. It's going backwards. When these planets are moving in retrograde motion, they're much slower than when they're moving forward. So Mars is moving quite slowly. So it's taking his time to go back over this old territory. So our energy levels may not be as strong. We may feel like, we need to take a break, slow down. Talked about that last time, watch it in the traffic because people are getting impatient, frustrated, traffic delays, accidents, those kinds of things.
Well, it's opposite Pluto too.
That's the big
And
thing.
that's the big thing I was going to say. Let's just mention that.
So there's a whole lot of things actually about this Mars retrograde cycle, because he goes retrograde every 2 years and it's always for 10 weeks in whatever sign it's in. This time it's making these 3 oppositions to Pluto. You cannot get a more potent, intense combination than Pluto in hard aspect to Mars. I know because I have one. I have the square.
Yeah.
And it is intense, and it's very potentially extremely transformative. It gives incredible energy and determination to overcome really strong things and to really develop, at best, a really healthy use of the will and a very strong sense of confidence and know who you are and, where your line is and where your bottom line is and, what's okay and what, all of that sort of stuff really can help to develop the inner warrior spirit in a very healthy sort of a way. The worst expression of that same energy can show up in the charts of, psychopathic mass murderers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? That's true of everything in astrology. There's always 2 sides, and it's a spectrum and a range. So we're seeing. So one of these things about the drones is, are these drones dangerous? Are they a threat? Are they weaponized? Are they going to be used as weapons? Are people just being programmed to get used to them, and before long they'll be unleashed in a very destructive way? Nobody knows yet. Well, someone knows, but we don't know.
Yeah.
So that's very Mars Pluto as well. Or is it challenging each and every one of us to evolve and grow and question and find our own source of individual power? That's sort of what's underlying all of this. It is intense. It's very strong. It's not easy. So it can help us to look back over our life and face those times when we perhaps were really frightened, or we backed down, or we let other people dominate and control us.
Yes.
We've all been there.
Or be manipulated by them.
Or be manipulated, and so we get to review all of that stuff. And so situations can arise where we go, here I am again. And that old stuff can come up, and where am I at with that now?
Yeah.
So it is really strong. And as I talk about it, I can feel the energy in me, that's where it is. So just a bit of timing on that. So the first exact opposition happened in November the 3rd. And that's, in the world, that's when people were having these assassination attempts on Trump. That's very Mars Pluto. January the 3rd, Mars retrograde will be exactly opposite Pluto at 1 degree of Leo Aquarius. And the final one will be late April. So yeah, it's a strong energy, but it's really powerful in the sense of really, I think, a confrontation with our own will and how do we use it? Do we use it to control and dominate other people in an abusive way, or are we using it to really take ownership of who we are?
Yeah, not in an explosive way either. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's right. Just in a very clear, powerful way.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be explosive and destructive at all.
Yeah.
It can come up at times as rage and fury. If someone's been under a great deal of pressure, at some point there may be an explosion. So
Yeah.
if some people are going through that, this energy really explains that,
Yeah.
that can happen. But that can also be a moment where something that's been very, very stuck for a long time can become unstuck. Sometimes an explosion is required to
Yes.
unstuck something.
Yeah, exactly. Just let something out.
Yeah, exactly. Like a pressure cooker.
Yeah. Great minds think alike there.
Yeah, we've all seen pictures of pressure cookers exploding.
Oh gosh, yes.
So release valves are important. How do we give ourselves release valves?
Yes.
Moving our body physically, expressing these raw, powerful energies in ways that are healthy so that they don't just build and build and build until there is an explosion and then it's destruction.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so if you're the type of person who is easily frustrated is the word. Then those sort of things can happen.
Yeah.
Holding it in, holding it in, holding it in.
Yeah.
You might have had an experience over the holidays with a family member like that, or
that's right.
You've got this long-term history and you just bite your tongue, hold things in, then they just say one word and you go,
and out it all comes. Because it's quite volcanic in that way. And of course, when Mars actually then moves back into Cancer, still retrograde on the 6th of January, this energy can be really stirring up things in our personal life, in our emotions and feelings and family and home.
Yeah.
If you've got kids around you, as I do, like there might be moments when they kind of lose it emotionally because Mars is such a hot energy. It has a lot of energy. Energy planet. It's red, the planet's red from our perspective on Earth, but the color we always associate it with, it is red.
Yeah. And it's always immediate and direct.
Yeah.
If you think of the glyph, it's the circle with the arrow sticking out.
Exactly.
And it's in that respect, it can be knee-jerk reactions.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
and then you go, oh, where did that come from?
Yeah. The healthy expression is that it helps us to make choices and decisions so that we can move our life forward. But that might mean, with the opposition to Pluto, that something is destroyed in inverted commas, as in something might need to come to an end, or a really uncomfortable, difficult decision might have to be made, which will mean the end of something, or the end of a relationship, or the end of a situation.
Yeah.
But in order to move your life forward and to come into your own courage and power, that might be what's been called up for some people.
So for everyone's diary, it's exact on the 3rd of January.
Yeah. So this needed to be spoken about, with this new moon, because it's up right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah.
Better give them some more dates.
That's right. We don't want to just stay with that. So what else have you? Oh, here's something gorgeous. As a beautiful counterbalance to this, on January the 3rd, Venus, the goddess love, she moves into Pisces.
Yes, lovely.
That's really beautiful. Venus is exalted in Pisces. She loves being in Pisces. It's very soft. It's very heartfelt, very intuitive. It's very compassionate. very artistic and creative, beautiful music, walking on the beach, gazing at a sunset,
Yeah, unconditional love.
unconditional love.
Mm. So some
Yeah,
of that might offset some of the other
I
explosive.
think so. I think it's a beautiful balance because that's actually happening on the same day as the Mars-Pluto opposition that Venus goes into Pisces. Isn't that amazing?
It is, yeah. They're working together.
They are.
Yeah.
They are. So I think, and as I say that, I'm reminded that Leo, because Mars is in Leo still, um, is the heart and it's like the physical heart and the chest, and Venus, she is the heart, she is the love and the feeling of love and compassion and beauty in the heart, particularly in Pisces. So it strikes me there's something about, what is your heart's desire? What is our heart longing for? And how do we use this Mars and Leo energy to and to connect with our will to make that happen? But Venus is there as well. Like, what is your heart really longing for? So that could be something helpful for people to ponder and consider at this time as well.
Yeah.
And
Ah,
how do we move forward with that,
yeah.
Oh, then on the 8th, well, I mentioned on the 6th, Mars retrograde will move back into Cancer and get back to 17 of Cancer. On the 8th, Mercury leaves Sagittarius. So we've still got a bit of that expansive Sagittarius energy around up until the 8th. And Mercury will be there then through to the end of January, the 28th of January.
Mm,
So again, Mercury comes into Capricorn and helps our mind
mm.
to be very focused and, get on with the job. It's
Yeah.
very task oriented.
Yeah. Practical thinking, also clear communication.
Yeah.
Mm, mm.
And maybe serious conversations.
Yeah, yeah. And
Mm.
I think also making well-informed decisions and
Yep.
also articulating maybe to ourselves or maybe to others our long-term objectives.
Yes.
You know, there's
Yeah.
something about saying things about what you want out loud. It brings
Right.
it into the material world, doesn't it?
Yes, the power of the spoken word.
Yeah.
Yes. And Mercury in Capricorn can also be like words of wisdom, weighty words, like speaking with authority and seriousness and integrity. These are very Capricorn qualities. Hmm. Mercury in Sagittarius, which where it still is wonderful and very expressive, but Sagittarius is prone to exaggeration. Like if Mercury in Sag is telling a story, it's like, wow, it's colorful, it's exciting, and it might be absolutely embellished and exaggerated and stretched. Um, in Capricorn, that will not happen. A story will be very specific and precise. There's no wastage of words.
Mm.
It's to the point, and that, like, when somebody who's very Capricornian and has Mercury in Capricorn, that when they say something, they mean what they say and they say what they mean.
Mm, mm.
And you can believe them. If they say they'll be there at 9 o'clock, they will be there. They'll be there at 5 to 9.
Yes. Yes, they're never late.
Never late, usually early.
Yes, yeah. Well, I for one will be glad for that to move into Capricorn because, Sagittarius is also about just taking your left foot out of your mouth long enough to put your right foot in, which I did over the holidays. So, with no horrible intention, it just
Yeah,
say things out of the blue and they go, what the hell did I just say?
that's right.
Uh,
That's right. There's no internal censoring going on with Sage. It's truth. It just says it
yes,
without thinking.
from here to here, boom.
That's right. And yeah, that's right. Whereas Capricorn will often think about what it's going to say,
It's very cautious.
cautious,
And
prepared.
yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
but very good for focus, and study and things like that. So anyone who's, taking on some kind of study, but I mean, most courses and things don't usually start in January. Like my next courses will start in February because I like to come in with the Aquarius energy. Um, but yeah, study, discipline, mind, focus, that sort of thing. Um, and then on January the 12th, something interesting happens. So for the last 18 months, the North Node has been going through Aries and the South Node's been going through Libra. So this is a karmic axis of the North and South Nodes. On the 12th, and the nodes move backwards through the signs because they're not planets, they're not physical bodies. And the North Node will exit Aries and move into Pisces. And this, of course, is fascinating because there's so much going on this year, particularly in the first few months of 2025, of all these planets and bodies moving backwards and forwards across the cusp between Pisces and Aries. Pisces, the last sign, the sign of endings and closure and completion and emptying out, and Aries is the birth of the new. There is a lot going on around that very, very critical cusp of 0 degrees of Aries over the coming couple of months. And one of them is very significant. This is the first one. The North Node moves back into Pisces.
Mm. Mm.
So, yeah, there's a whole lot to say about that, of course, but we'll have plenty of time to talk about all of that.
Yes. There's a lot happening in Pisces, isn't there?
There is.
That happen. Yeah.
That's right. And so just overall, and I wrote a post on Facebook about this, and so many people responded because they were experiencing exactly the same thing. There's this feeling like we need to clear space, clear the decks, clear the path, empty out, get rid of things, clear our minds, clear our house, clear everything out of the way, because there's all these new energies coming in.
Mm.
And Pisces helps us to do that, to empty stuff out, like, no, don't need that, let go, let go, let go.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and it's an extraordinary time, and this coming year is going to be so interesting and very different to where we've been these last few years.
Yeah.
And it feels overall like it will be less heavy and less dense.
A lot of change.
A lot of change,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
in itself can be challenging.
Yeah.
But yeah, but it's energetically very different.
Mm.
And that then brings us, of course, to the full moon on January the 14th.
Mm. Lovely.
Yes, which will be at 23 degrees of Cancer, conjunct Mars in retrograde, just to keep it interesting. And it will be square the black moon Lilith in Libra and square Chiron and Eris in Aries. So there'll be a lot for us to talk about with that one.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's something to digest as we enter into the new year to think about
Yes.
and process. Definitely. Actually, there's a lot. We had a couple of months last year where there wasn't a whole lot happening.
Yeah, around the middle of the year. Yeah.
Yeah. But and sometimes these things don't happen where they sort of hit us on the head, but there's these internal movements and external
Yeah.
movements that change. It's like a stick going down the rapids, it's just over here and then over there and
That's right.
down this rock and there's still stuff happening and sometimes it happens so quickly we don't even realize we've integrated it.
Yes.
Isn't that curious?
Yes, because it's all moving so fast.
Yeah.
And I think it's only in looking back we realize, how we've changed.
Yeah.
And I was listening to a conversation recently of these two very intelligent wise women, and they both commented on this, like since 2020, how much they personally have changed and grown and evolved. We've been pushed into incredible growth and evolution and change. And I think most of us could say that.
Yeah, and I think during 2020 and 2021 particularly, you and I were talking about being put on the cosmic rack
Yeah,
and stretched a lot.
yeah,
Now I feel like we've been stretched, and so we can integrate these changes much more readily.
I think so too.
Yeah, yeah, and we
And
have
we can hold a lot more, can't
a
we?
lot more. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we've gone from the martini glass to the punch bowl now. You know?
I love that. We're bigger.
Yes, and we've been shaken and stirred.
Absolutely. And the challenges keep coming thick and fast.
Yes, but I just feel we seem to be able to process it much faster and not so in such a way that it's hugely impactful
Yes, I agree.
internally, you know?
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful stuff, astrology. It's
Wonderful.
when you follow the planetary shifts and changes, it really helps you understand what's going on. And for that, I'm forever grateful for.
Same. I'm so grateful to have astrology in my life. It's
Yeah.
just, I continue to be grateful for it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So everyone watching this, if you enjoyed the episode, please remember to like it. A lot of people watch it, but they never like it. So we really appreciate it if you do, because it shifts the algorithms, and that means more people get to watch this and become
Yeah.
informed
Yeah.
about what's going on, which is really helpful for them. And if you really like it, feel free to subscribe and share it with your friends. So until next time, Babula, thank you so much for all your.
Thank you, Cheryl. Always. I always enjoy it.
Yeah, and I'll be seeing you real soon, and we will
Yes,
see
you will.
you, everyone, in another 2 weeks for the next lunar
And it will be
cycle.
2025.
I know. So happy New Year,
Happy
everybody.
New Year, everyone.
Yeah, and let's hope it's well, it will be, I'm sure, but
Yeah.
a wonderful, easygoing, although changeable time.
Yeah.
Ride those currents and
Yeah.
follow us into as we follow the star trails into the age of Aquarius. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.